The crop protection industry urgently needs new solutions. One such is targeted protein degradation, effectively hijacking the internal waste disposal system of pests and weeds.
So we're inspired by two main areas. Firstly is advances in targeted protein degradation on the pharmaceutical side, where the industry is using this technology to degrade cancer proteins, and also by the plant's own internal cellular homeostasis. So essentially we're identifying these molecular glues. They're small molecule chemistries that are sprayed onto fields like any other, and once uptaken by the plant or pest, we induce proximity between a protein of interest and a protein degrader, typically an E3 ligase. And once proximity is induced, the protein of interest is tagged for degradation by the plant or pest cell. By degradation, we mean instead of inhibiting these target proteins, we're removing them entirely from the cell.
So how does that differ from the kind of mechanism of action in a sort of traditional herbicide, for example?
Yeah, so most ag-chem products, and indeed most drugs, function by inhibiting a catalytic site, so an active site. So you can imagine that Pac-Man model with something in its mouth. Our approach is different. We target non-catalytic sites to degrade rather than inhibiting the protein.
Okay. So why is this different kind of mode of action potentially exciting? You know, can it act on weeds that current herbicides can't? Would it be harder to develop resistance?
Yeah, exactly. So we are able to overcome resistance to existing targets. We're able to drug the previously undruggable targets, such as transcription factors, scaffold proteins, unlocking a new toolbox for targets for the industry.
And could you have lower application rates potentially?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the main benefits of targeted protein degradation. Our molecular glues act catalytically, so one compound can degrade very many proteins, potentially reducing application rates by up to 100 times.
Okay. So you said this isn't an entirely new concept in crop protection, that some established herbicides do something kind of similar, but it was discovered kind of serendipitously, whereas you are using kind of rational design, if you like.
Yeah, so Bindbridge is the first and only targeted protein degradation via molecular glue startup. We're taking inspiration from two approaches. Firstly, around the pharmaceutical industry and how they take well-characterized degraders to target these neo-substrates. And secondly, around our sort of fundamental understanding of plant biology and how we can modify these compounds like synthetic auxins to degrade novel targets.
So EarthBio was doing a form of targeted protein degradation, but as I understand it, with kind of larger, more complex molecules. They recently called it quits. How is your approach different?
So EarthBio had licensed PROTAC technology from Arvenus, a human PROTAC company. Generally those compounds are too large and expensive for field-based application. They really struggle to get through the plant's cell wall or waxy membrane. Our molecular glues, they're much smaller, cheaper to produce, and have more agronomically relevant qualities that make for good herbicides, fungicides or insecticides.
Okay, so can you explain how your computational platform kind of uses AI to discover and design these small molecules?
Yeah, at the center of our computational approach, we have the Bridge platform. It is a constrained generative process that takes real chemical fragments and chemical reactions and constrains the generation based on these desirable agronomic qualities. So what we have out the back of our model is up to 100 predictions that are both predicted to induce proximity between the target protein and the degrader, but also are predicted to have suitable agronomic qualities in the field too.
So you're able to kind of factor in practical constraints from the get-go, if you like.
Exactly, and we're able to then to tell our customer or a chemical synthesis provider the exact chemical route to be able to create these molecules. We have an understanding of whether they are likely to work in the field and an approximation of the cost of goods as well.
Okay, so beyond kind of crop protection, could this same mechanism be used for other things?
Yeah, exactly. So in the first instance, we're looking to develop a new broad spectrum non-specific herbicide. but our technology can also be applied to discovering new insecticides and fungicides, as well as sprayable traits. And in fact, many of those abiotic and biotic stress pathways are regulated by degraders in the plant. So overcoming or improving drought tolerance or nutrient use efficiency could be a whole new class of products for us.
So could you give me a specific example of that? How would you be utilising that mechanism in one of those instances?
So yeah, you could foresee a time where a farmer might see on his or her weather app a period of hot or dry weather coming up, and they could preemptively spray a heat tolerance molecular glue onto the field to temporarily protect that crop from the drought before resuming regular growth when conditions are better again. Very often they are negatively regulated, so the proteins are always expressed, ready to go, ready to confer some drought tolerance. And what we can do is degrade that negative regulator, take our foot off the brake, and the plant can then have protection from this abiotic or biotic stress.
Okay, so how does your business model work?
Great question. So yeah, we have two distinct business models. In the first instance, we are engaging in joint development programs with the ag chem industry. They come to us with either a target protein or application in mind. And secondly, we are developing our own lead compounds in-house in the first instance towards this target of developing a glyphosate replacement. So we are working on those large pressing issues globally, so working in those key crops, so corn, soy, in the US and South America. But also our technology is has a potentially easier regulatory route, so maybe applicable for European crops as well.